Palermo never really slept. It just softened. The chaos of the day faded into something quieter, more dangerous. Because in this city, the silence didn't mean peace. It meant control. Every Thursday night, at exactly 8:17 p.m., Ronin Veil walked into the same restaurant. Not early. Not late. Exact. Predictable. Like everything else in his life. The restaurant itself was small. Too small for a man like him. Old wood. Soft lights. The faint smell of wine and sea air drifting in from the open windows. A place where normal people laughed. A place where life still felt real. Ronin never laughed. He always sat at the same table. Corner. Back facing the wall. Eyes on the door. A habit born from years of surviving things most men wouldn't even understand. The staff knew him. But they never spoke more than necessary. They never asked questions. Because in Sicily, everyone knew who Ronin Veil was. A man whispered about. A man feared. A man who built an empire out of blood and silence. But none of that mattered here. Not to him. Because he didn't come for power. He didn't come for food. He came because 3 years ago, this was the last place he had seen his son alive. Matteo. 8 years old. Loud. Curious. Alive in a way Ronin never had been. And then. Gone. Ronin never spoke about it. Never allowed anyone to mention his name. But every Thursday, he came back. Sat in the same chair. Ordered the same wine. And remembered. Tonight was supposed to be no different. Until she walked in. Elena's heart didn't belong in Palermo. You could tell in seconds. Not because she looked lost. But because she didn't look afraid. She moved like someone who hadn't learned the rules yet. Which, in this city, was dangerous. She was carrying a tray. Too fast. Too confident. And not watching where she was going. Ronin noticed her immediately. Not because she was beautiful. Though she was. But because she was unpredictable. And unpredictable things always became problems. It happened in a second. A step too close. A turn too sharp. And then. The tray tilted. The glass slipped. And the red wine. Spilled. Across his chest. Silence. Instant. Complete. The entire restaurant froze. No one breathed. No one moved. Because everyone knew what that meant. You don't touch Ronin Veil. You don't make mistakes around him. And you definitely don't ruin a suit that costs more than your entire life. Elena froze. The empty tray still in her hands. Eyes wide. But not terrified. That was the first mistake. Because she didn't run. Didn't beg. Didn't drop to her knees like everyone else would. Instead, she looked at him. Really looked. Oh my God, she said. A pause. Then. That is definitely not coming out. A few people in the restaurant almost choked. Because. Did she really just say that? Ronin didn't move. Didn't blink. The wine dripped slowly down his jacket. Dark red. Almost like blood. And for a moment, it felt like time had stopped. You should be careful, he said finally. His voice calm. Too calm. Elena blinked. Yeah, she nodded quickly. I figured that out a second too late. Silence again. Because this wasn't how this was supposed to go. She should be scared. She should be apologizing. But she wasn't. She set the tray down slowly. Reached for a cloth. Okay, don't move, she said. Ronin raised an eyebrow slightly. Don't move? Yeah, she replied. Focused now. Like none of this was strange. Like he wasn't dangerous. Like he was just a man who needed help. And before anyone could stop her, she stepped closer. Too close. She started dabbing at the stain carefully. The entire room held its breath. Because no one touched Ronin Veil. But she did. And he didn't stop her. That was the second mistake. Or maybe the beginning of everything. You're new, he said. Elena didn't look up. Is it that obvious? Yes. A small smile appeared on her lips. Great. I was hoping to blend in. Ronin watched her for a moment. Longer than necessary. You won't, he said. Good, she replied softly. That made him pause. Because that answer didn't make sense. And for the first time in a very long time, Ronin felt something unfamiliar. Curiosity. Elena finally stepped back. Looking at the stain. Then at him. Okay, she said. I made it worse. A beat. Then. I'm really sorry. Not forced. Not afraid. Real. Ronin stared at her. And for reasons he didn't understand. He didn't feel anger. He didn't feel anything he expected to feel. Instead, something cracked. Just slightly. Sit, he said. Elena blinked. What? Sit, he repeated. The entire restaurant froze again. Because this had never happened before. I'm working, she said. Not right now. A pause. Then, slowly, she sat down. Across from him. And just like that, the world shifted. Because neither of them knew it yet. But that moment. That stupid accident. That glass of wine. Would change everything. For the first time in years. Ronin Veil didn't leave immediately after finishing his meal. He stayed. Not for the food. Not for the wine. For her. Elena sat across from him, slightly awkward now that the moment had stretched longer than expected. She wasn't supposed to be here. Not sitting with a man every other person in the room was pretending not to watch. So, she said finally. Do you always invite strangers to sit with you after they ruin your clothes? Ronin looked at her. A long, unreadable look. No. A pause. Just you. That wasn't charming. It wasn't flirtatious. It was honest. And somehow, that made it more dangerous. Elena shifted slightly in her seat. Well, she said. That makes me feel special. Or very unlucky. A corner of Ronin's mouth almost moved. Almost. Which one do you think it is? He asked. She tilted her head, studying him. Really studying him now. I think, she said slowly. You don't actually want people to talk to you. Silence. Because that wasn't something anyone said to him. And yet you're still here, he replied. Elena shrugged. You told me to sit. A beat. You don't seem like someone people say no to. That time. He did react. Just slightly. You could have, he said. She met his eyes. Would you have let me? Another silence. But this one. Different. Because neither of them knew the answer. A waiter approached carefully, placing a fresh glass of wine on the table. Hands slightly shaking. Ronin didn't look at him. Didn't acknowledge him. But Elena did. Thank you, she said softly. The waiter blinked. Surprised. His name was Matteo. A pause. Long. He liked this place, Ronin added. Elena glanced around the restaurant. Then back at him. That's why you come here, she said. Not a question. He nodded once. I didn't know if I should keep coming, he admitted. A beat. Until you spilled wine on me. That surprised her. That's a weird reason to keep a habit, she said. It gave me a reason to stay, he replied. Silence. But not heavy. Something softer now. Something real. And for the first time in 3 years. Ronin didn't feel alone at that table. Not completely. At the end of that night. He stood before she could leave. Come with me, he said. Elena blinked. Where? A pause. Then. Anywhere that isn't here. She hesitated. Just for a second. Because she knew. This wasn't small anymore. This was a step. A dangerous one. But something in his eyes. Something quiet. Something honest. Made her nod. Okay. And just like that. Everything changed again. The city felt different when you weren't hiding in it. That was the first thing Elena noticed. Palermo at night wasn't just beautiful. It was alive. Light stretching across the harbor. The sound of distant waves. Warm air carrying laughter from streets that never truly slept. Ronin didn't take her anywhere crowded. Of course he didn't. He never chose places by accident. The car stopped near the edge of the coastline. Quiet. Private. Almost untouched. Elena stepped out first, looking around. Okay, she said softly. This is definitely better than the restaurant. Ronin closed the car door behind him. You don't like it there? He asked. She turned slightly, leaning against the hood. I like it, she said. A pause. But I think you don't. That caught him. Why would you think that? He asked. Elena shrugged. You don't look at anything when you're there, she said. Not the food. Not the people. A beat. Only the past. Silence. Because that was too accurate. Ronin didn't respond. But he didn't deny it either. Instead, he walked toward the water. Elena followed. Not too close. Not too far. You always figure people out this fast? He asked. She smiled faintly. Only the ones who don't want to be figured out. That earned a quiet breath from him. Not quite a laugh. But closer than before. They stood there for a moment. Watching the waves. Listening to nothing. Why did you leave? Ronin asked suddenly. Elena glanced at him. America? He nodded. A pause. Then. Because staying felt worse, she said. Simple. But not shallow. Worse than what? He asked. She didn't answer immediately. Then feeling like I didn't belong anywhere, she said finally. Ronin looked at her. Really looked this time. And here? He asked. She smiled slightly. I don't belong here either. A beat. Then. But at least I chose it. That. Stayed with him. Because choice was something he hadn't thought about in a long time. You talk like someone who ran away, he said. Elena turned to him. And you talk like someone who never could. Silence again. But deeper now. Because both of them were right. The wind picked up slightly, brushing her hair across her face. Without thinking, Ronin reached out. Stopped. Just before touching her. That moment said more than anything else. Because for a man like him, hesitation didn't exist. Except now. Elena noticed. Of course she did. You can, she said quietly. His eyes met hers. A pause. Then, slowly, he moved his hand again, tucking a strand of her hair behind her ear. Gentle. Careful. Like she might disappear if he wasn't. And for a second, the world disappeared with them. No past. No danger. No rules. Just that moment. Elena didn't pull away. Didn't step back. Because she felt it too. Something real. Something dangerous. You're not what I expected, she said softly. Ronin's voice was quieter now. Neither are you. A pause. Then. That's usually how trouble starts, she added. That time. He did smile. Just slightly. I've had worse starts, he said. They stayed there longer than they planned. Talking. Not about everything. But enough. Enough to blur the line between stranger and something else. When he drove her back, neither of them spoke much. Because some moments didn't need words. As the car stopped outside her place, Elena turned toward him. So, she said. What happens now? Ronin looked at her. A question. A real one. That depends, he said. On what? She asked. A pause. Then. On whether you come back next Thursday. She smiled. Not surprised. I will, she said. A beat. Then. Will you? He held her gaze. Yes. No hesitation. No, maybe, this time. And that meant everything. Elena stepped out of the car. But before closing the door, she paused. Ronin? He looked at her. Be careful, she said. A simple sentence. But it hit harder than anything else. Because no one said that to him. No one cared enough to. I always am, he replied. She studied him for a second. Then. Not like that, she said softly. And then. She closed the door. Ronin sat there for a moment, watching her walk away. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel empty. But somewhere, in the shadows of Palermo, someone else was watching too. And unlike Ronin, they didn't hesitate. By the next Thursday, things should have felt normal. But nothing did. Not for Ronin. Because once you noticed danger, you couldn't unsee it. The restaurant looked the same. Same lights. Same quiet conversations. Same smell of wine and sea. But Ronin didn't sit immediately. He paused. Just for a second. Scanning. Doors. Windows. Reflections in the glass. Nothing obvious. Which made it worse. Because the most dangerous threats were never obvious. You're late, Elena said, appearing beside him. Ronin turned. He hadn't heard her approach. That alone was unusual. 2 minutes, he replied. She crossed her arms slightly. That's late for you. He studied her. Then. You've been paying attention. She smiled faintly. Someone has to. A pause. Then. Sit, she said, nodding toward the table. He did. But this time, he didn't relax. Not completely. Elena noticed. Of course she did. Okay, she said as she placed a glass in front of him. What's wrong? Nothing, he replied. She gave him a look. You don't do nothing, she said. A beat. You do, something is about to go wrong, but I won't say it out loud. That almost made him smile again. Almost. You should leave early tonight, he said instead, but firmly. Stay close, he said. No argument this time. Because now. She understood. This wasn't a warning anymore. This was real. They moved toward the back exit. Too late. Another man stepped into view, blocking the path. Then another. And another. Not loud. Not chaotic. Planned. Santoro, Ronin muttered under his breath. Elena heard it. Who is that? She whispered. Ronin didn't look at her. The man who's about to make your life very dangerous. The men closed in slowly. No rush. Because they knew. There was nowhere to run. But Ronin didn't panic. He never did. Instead, he stepped slightly in front of her, shielding her. And for the first time, Elena saw it clearly. Not the man she sat with every Thursday. Not the man who listened. Not the man who smiled. Just once. But the other side. The one people feared. The one who survived everything. The one who would do anything to protect what was his. Stay behind me, he said. And this time, it wasn't a suggestion. The room felt smaller. Not physically, but because danger had filled every inch of it. No one in the restaurant moved. No one spoke. Because everyone understood. This wasn't something you got involved in. This was something you survived by ignoring. The men didn't rush. That was the first sign. Professionals. They spread out slowly, blocking exits, controlling space. Ronin watched all of it. Counting. Positioning. Timing. 3 near the entrance. 2 behind. 1 already moving toward the kitchen. And the one in front. The one smiling. That was the message. You've been busy, Ronin, the man said. His voice smooth. Too relaxed for what was about to happen. Ronin didn't answer. Because talking wasn't the point. Boss wants a conversation, the man continued. A pause. And the girl. That changed everything. Elena felt Ronin's grip tighten. Just slightly. Not fear. Control. She's not part of this, Ronin said. The man smiled wider. She is now. Silence. Because that was the moment. There was no going back. Elena's heart started pounding. Hard. Fast. But she didn't pull away. Didn't panic. She stayed. Because somewhere deep down, she had already made her choice. Ronin, she whispered. He didn't look at her. Stay behind me, he repeated. Then, everything moved at once. The man in front reached inside his jacket. Too slow. Ronin stepped forward. Faster. His hand caught the man's wrist mid-motion. Twisting. Hard. A crack echoed through the room. The gun dropped. And before anyone else could react, Ronin moved again. Precise. Efficient. Not rage. Not chaos. Control. He struck the man in the throat. Dropped him instantly. The others reacted. Too late. One rushed from the side. Ronin turned. Disarmed. Countered. Another down. Gunshots exploded from the back. The room shattered. Elena flinched. But Ronin didn't. He grabbed her. Pulled her behind the table. Shielding her completely. Glass shattered above them. Wood splintered. Stay down, he said. His voice. Still calm. That scared her more than anything. Because this wasn't new to him. This was normal. Ronin leaned out. Fired once. One man dropped. Another shot. Clean. Controlled. No hesitation. No wasted movement. Elena stared at him. Frozen. Because now. She saw it. Not rumors. Not whispers. Truth. He wasn't just dangerous. He was lethal. And yet. Every movement. Every shot. Every decision. Was calculated. Not reckless. Not wild. Protective. For her. Move, he said suddenly. He grabbed her hand. Pulled her up. They ran. Through the kitchen. Past stunned staff. Through the back exit. The night air hit hard. Cold. Real. But they didn't stop. A car screeched to a halt nearby. Ronin's. He pushed her inside. Circled around. Started the engine. The tires screamed against the pavement as they took off. Behind them. More cars appeared. Following. Elena looked back. Heart racing. They're still coming, she said. I know, Ronin replied. No panic. No hesitation. Just focus. He took a sharp turn. Another. Cutting through narrow streets only someone who knew the city would dare to use. The chase stretched on. Minutes that felt like hours. Until finally. The cars behind them disappeared. Silence filled the vehicle. Heavy. Elena's breathing was uneven. Her hands still shaking. Ronin didn't speak. Didn't need to. Because everything had changed. After a few minutes. He pulled over. Not at her place. Not anywhere familiar. Somewhere safe. Or as close as it could get. He turned off the engine. Silence again. Elena stared ahead. Trying to process everything. Then. You kill people, she said. Not accusing. Not emotional. Just, stating a fact. Ronin didn't deny it. Yes. A pause. And they were going to take you, he added. Elena closed her eyes for a second. Because she understood that part. But understanding. Didn't make it easier. This is your world, she said quietly. Ronin looked at her. Yes. A beat. And now it's yours too. That. Was the truth. No soft version. No escape. Elena let out a slow breath. Then. She turned to him. Really looked at him. Not the man from Thursday nights. Not the man by the ocean. But the man who just destroyed everyone who came near her. And somehow. She didn't step away. Then don't lie to me again, she said. Ronin's eyes held hers. I won't. A pause. Good, she said. Another pause. Because I'm not leaving. Silence. Because that. Was the last thing he expected. You should, he said. She shook her head. No. A beat. I chose this. Those words hit harder than anything else that night. Because choice. Was something he understood. And now. She had made hers. Morning came too quietly. Like the city was pretending nothing had happened. But Palermo never forgot. And neither did Ronin. The safe house overlooked the sea. Hidden. Guarded. Untouchable. In theory. Elena stood by the window, arms crossed, staring out at the horizon. She hadn't slept. Not really. Because every time she closed her eyes, she saw it again. The gunshots. The bodies. The look in Ronin's eyes. Not anger. Not rage. Control. You should rest, Ronin said behind her. It wasn't. The street was busy. Crowded. Safe. Or at least, it looked that way. Elena stepped into a small shop. Just for a moment. Just to feel normal again. That was all it took. One moment. One blind spot. One mistake. The power cut. Lights out. The street erupted in confusion. Voices. Movement. And in that chaos, a van pulled up. Fast. Silent. The doors opened. Hands grabbed her. Hard. She didn't even have time to scream. Because something pressed against her neck. Sharp. Cold. Darkness. When the lights came back, she was gone. Ronin got the call 3 minutes later. 3 minutes. That changed everything. She's been taken. Silence. Not explosive. Not loud. Just. Dead. Who? Ronin asked. He already knew. Santoro. A pause. They left a message. Ronin's eyes closed for half a second. Say it. The voice on the other end hesitated. Then. Bring me your empire. A pause. Or I take everything you have left. Silence. Because this time, it wasn't a warning. It was war. And Ronin had just lost the only thing he couldn't replace. The room felt colder after the call ended. Not because of the air. But because something inside Ronin Veil had gone still. Not calm. Not controlled. Empty. The kind of empty that came right before something broke. Say it again, he said quietly. The man across from him hesitated. They took her near via Roma, he repeated. Our men lost sight for 30 seconds. 30 seconds. That was all it took. Ronin didn't move. Didn't react. But everyone in the room felt it. That shift. Because they had seen this before. Years ago. The last time someone took something from him. Find them, Ronin said. His voice. Too calm. Every car. Every street. Every contact. A pause. I want everything. The room exploded into motion. Phones ringing. Orders flying. Doors opening. But Ronin stayed still. Just for a second longer. Because there was only one thought left in his head. Not again. Miles away. Elena woke up slowly. Her head hurt. Vision blurred. The first thing she noticed. Darkness. Not complete. But enough. Then. Cold. Concrete floor beneath her. Her hands. Tied. Her breathing quickened. But she didn't panic. Not yet. Because panic wouldn't help. Good, a voice said from the shadows. Elena's head snapped up. A man stepped forward. Tall. Sharp suit. Calm eyes. Too calm. You're awake, he continued. Elena stared at him. Santoro, she said. He smiled. I like you already. A pause. Most people don't say my name so easily. Most people don't kidnap strangers, she replied. That made him laugh. Soft. Genuine. You think you're a stranger? He asked. Elena didn't answer. Because now. She understood. This wasn't random. You're important, Santoro continued. A beat. Not because of who you are. Another pause. But because of what you are to him. Elena's jaw tightened. You won't get anything from him, she said. Santoro tilted his head slightly. You're wrong. A step closer. I already have. Silence. His attention. That was worse than anything else. Because this wasn't about negotiation. This was about breaking him. Back in Palermo, Ronin stood over a map. Marked. Tracked. Alive with information. We've identified 3 possible locations, Luca said. Ronin didn't look up. Not enough. It's everything we have right now. A pause. Then it's not enough. Silence. Because everyone knew. He wasn't thinking like a strategist anymore. He was thinking like a man who had lost something. Again. Ronin, Luca said carefully. This is what Santoro wants. That made him look up. He wants you to react. A pause. He wants you to make a mistake. Ronin stepped closer. Then I'll make one. The room froze. Because I'm not losing her, he said. No hesitation. No doubt. Not for this. A beat. Not for anything. That was the decision. Empire. Power. Control. None of it mattered anymore. Prepare everything, Ronin said. We move in 1 hour. Luca stared at him. That's reckless. Ronin's voice dropped. Lower. Colder. So is taking something that belongs to me. Silence. Because now. This wasn't strategy. This was war. Back in the dark room. Elena sat still. Watching. Listening. Because she understood something now. Santoro wasn't going to kill her. Not yet. She was more useful alive. Which meant she had time. And time meant opportunity. He's coming for you, she said suddenly. Santoro smiled again. Of course he is. A pause. That's the point. Elena's eyes sharpened. Then you're making a mistake. He raised an eyebrow. Am I? She leaned forward slightly. Because you think you're in control. A beat. But you've never seen him when he has nothing left to lose. Silence. Santoro studied her. Longer this time. Then. He smiled. Wider. That, he said softly, is exactly what I'm counting on. The clock started ticking. And somewhere between rage and love, Ronin Veil was about to become something even more dangerous. Time moved differently when you were waiting to be saved. Slower. Heavier. Cruel. Elena sat in the dim room, wrists tied behind her, back against the cold concrete wall. She had stopped counting minutes. Because counting made it worse. Instead, she listened. Footsteps. Voices. Doors opening and closing. Patterns. Because if she couldn't fight, she could think. 2 guards outside. Always. One changed every hour. The other stayed. Routine. And routine was a weakness. You're quiet, Santoro's voice echoed again as he stepped into the room. Elena didn't look at him. I'm thinking, she said. He smiled faintly. About escape? Now she looked up. About how long you think this will last. A pause. Santoro stepped closer. Long enough, he replied. For what? She asked. He tilted his head slightly. For him to arrive. Silence. Because both of them knew. That was inevitable. And when he does, she pressed. Santoro's smile didn't fade. Then we see what he values more. A beat. You. Another pause. Or everything he built. Elena's jaw tightened. You think he'll choose power? Santoro didn't answer immediately. Instead, he crouched slightly to her level, and the faint sound of her voice. Ronin. Everything stopped. Just for a second. Because she was alive. And that was all that mattered. He ran. Not controlled anymore. Not careful. Just fast. The door burst open. And there she was. Standing. Alive. Holding a gun. Their eyes met. And in that moment, everything else disappeared. But behind her, a slow clap echoed. Santoro stepped forward from the shadows. Beautiful, he said softly. A pause. Exactly how I imagined it. The room went still. Not quiet. Still. Because everything had led to this moment. Ronin stood in the doorway. Elena just a few steps ahead of him. Gun in her hands. Breathing uneven. But standing. Alive. And Santoro. Watching them both. Like this was never a fight. Just a performance. You came faster than I expected, Santoro said calmly. Ronin didn't answer. His eyes never left Elena. Checking every detail. Are you hurt? He asked. Elena shook her head. No. A pause. Then. I'm okay. That was all he needed. Everything else didn't matter. Santoro smiled. That's the problem with you, Ronin, he said. You always focus on the wrong thing. Now. Ronin looked at him. Slowly. Say what you want, Ronin replied. You already know why I'm here. Santoro nodded slightly. Of course I do. A pause. You're here to trade. Silence. Because that was the trap. There's no trade, Ronin said. His voice steady. You let her go. Santoro laughed. You still think you have leverage? A step forward. Look around. More men appeared. From the shadows. From behind. Guns raised. The situation flipped. Instantly. Elena's grip tightened on the weapon. But she knew. This wasn't something she could shoot her way out of. You brought your empire with you, Santoro continued. Good. A pause. Now I can take it all at once. Ronin didn't move. Didn't react. Because he already understood. This wasn't about winning. This was about surviving the moment. Let her walk out, Ronin said. And you get me. Silence. Even Elena froze. No, she said immediately. Ronin didn't look at her. It's done, he said quietly. That was the decision. Santoro watched them both. Interested now. You would give up everything? He asked. Ronin met his eyes. Yes. No hesitation. No doubt. And that was real. Elena stepped closer. You don't get to decide that, she said. Ronin's voice dropped. This isn't your choice. She shook her head. It is now. A beat. You think I survived all this just to watch you throw yourself away? Santoro smiled again. This is better than I thought, he said. A pause. Two people willing to die for each other. Another pause. Let's test that. He raised his hand slightly. One of his men stepped forward. Gun pointed directly at Elena. Another. Gun aimed at Ronin. Simple, Santoro said. One lives. Silence exploded through the room. The other doesn't. Elena's heart slammed against her chest. Ronin didn't blink. You choose, Santoro finished. This was the trap. Not power. Not territory. Choice. Because this time, there was no way out. No, Elena said. Her voice stronger now. We don't play this. Santoro tilted his head. You don't have a say. I do, she replied. And before anyone could react, she moved. Not toward the exit. Toward Ronin. She shoved him. Hard. Just as the shot fired. Time broke. The bullet missed him. But Elena gasped. Her body froze. And then she fell. No. The word didn't sound like Ronin. It sounded like something else. Something breaking. He caught her before she hit the ground. Blood. Too much. Stay with me, he said. But his voice wasn't controlled anymore. It wasn't calm. It was raw. Real. Elena's eyes struggled to focus. I told you, she whispered weakly. A faint, broken smile. Not to lie to me. Ronin shook his head. Don't. But she already knew. Santoro watched it all. Silent. Because this was what he wanted. To break him. And it worked. For the first time. Ronin Veil wasn't dangerous. He was vulnerable. And that was far more deadly. The moment Elena collapsed, something inside Ronin Veil snapped. Not cracked. Not shifted. Snapped. The world around him disappeared. No voices. No movement. Just one thing left. Her. Blood soaked through his hands. Warm. Too warm. Stay with me, he said again. But this time, it wasn't control. It was desperation. Elena tried to breathe. Each inhale weaker than the last. Ronin, she whispered. His name. Barely there. But it was enough. Because it reminded him what he was about to lose. And then everything changed. Ronin looked up. And for the first time, there was no restraint left in his eyes. No calculation. No patience. Just one thing. Violence. Pure. Uncontrolled. Santoro saw it. And for a split second, even he hesitated. That was the mistake. Ronin moved. Faster than before. Not precise. Not controlled. Relentless. The man closest to him fired. Missed. Ronin closed the distance in an instant. Grabbed the gun. Turned it. Shot him point blank. No pause. Another turned. Too slow. Ronin didn't shoot this time. He slammed him into the wall. Hard. Again. Again. Until the man stopped moving. Gunfire exploded across the room. But Ronin didn't take cover. He walked through it. Like pain didn't exist. Like nothing mattered anymore. Because it didn't. Not without her. Men fell. One after another. Not clean. Not efficient. Brutal. Personal. This wasn't strategy anymore. This was punishment. For daring to touch what was his. Santoro stepped back slowly. For the first time. His smile faded. Because this wasn't the outcome he planned. Stop him, he shouted. But no one could. Because Ronin wasn't stopping. He reached the last man between them. Disarmed him. Dropped him. And then it was just the two of them. Silence filled the room again. But this time, it was different. Heavy. Final. You think this changes anything? Santoro said, trying to regain control. Then. Weak, he said. A beat. But she's alive. The air returned. All at once. Ronin didn't speak. Didn't react loudly. But something inside him that had been falling stopped. Get her out, he said. His voice hoarse now. Now. The hospital lights were too bright. Too clean. Too quiet. Ronin hated places like this. Because they reminded him of things he couldn't control. He stood outside the operating room. Hands still stained with dried blood. Not moving. Not sitting. Just waiting. Time stretched. Minutes felt like hours. Every second. A reminder of how close he had come to losing her. Again. The door finally opened. A doctor stepped out. Ronin was in front of him instantly. She's stable, the doctor said. A pause. The bullet missed anything vital. Another pause. She was lucky. Ronin's jaw tightened. No, he said quietly. She wasn't. Because luck had nothing to do with it. She had chosen. Chosen to step in front of that bullet. For him. When can I see her? He asked. Soon, the doctor replied. But she'll need rest. Ronin nodded once. But he didn't move. Not yet. Because walking into that room meant facing something he hadn't allowed himself to feel. Fear. Not of death. But of losing someone. Again. When he finally stepped inside. The room was quiet. Machines humming softly. Lights dim. Elena lay still on the bed. Pale. Fragile. Not the girl who argued with him. Not the girl who smiled at him across the table. But still. Her. Ronin walked closer. Slowly. Like moving too fast might break something. He sat beside her. For the first time. He didn't know what to say. Because words didn't feel enough. So he just stayed. Minutes passed. Maybe more. Then. Her fingers moved. Just slightly. Ronin's head lifted immediately. Elena? Her eyes opened slowly. Blurred. Unfocused. Until they found him. A faint breath. You look terrible, she whispered. That almost broke him again. Because even now, she was still her. You should see the other guy, he replied quietly. A weak smile formed on her lips. Did you win? A pause. Yes. Another pause. Good. Silence settled between them. But it wasn't empty. It was real. You shouldn't have done that, Ronin said finally. Her eyes softened. Yeah, she murmured. A beat. But I did. He looked at her. Why? That question carried everything. She studied him for a moment. Even through the pain. Because you would have done the same, she said. A pause. And I didn't want to find out what happens to you if I didn't. That hit deeper than anything else. Because she understood. Not just what he did. But what he carried. Ronin leaned back slightly. For once. Not guarded. Not controlled. Just human. I'm not losing you, he said. Not a threat. Not a command. A promise. Elena closed her eyes for a second. Then don't, she whispered. And just like that. Something shifted again. Not in the world. But in him. Because for the first time. He wasn't just fighting to survive. He was fighting. To keep something. Something worth more than everything he built. Recovery wasn't loud. It didn't come with dramatic moments or sudden changes. It was slow. Quiet. Sometimes painful in ways no one could see. Elena stayed in the hospital longer than she wanted. Ronin stayed longer than anyone expected. He didn't leave. Not for meetings. Not for business. Not even for the empire that once demanded all of him. He stayed. At first. Elena noticed it in small things. The way he always sat in the same chair. The way he watched the door. Even here. The way he never fully relaxed. Old habits. Ones that didn't disappear overnight. But there were other things too. New things. He adjusted her blanket when she fell asleep. Made sure the room stayed quiet. Brought her water before she even asked. Things no one would ever expect. From a man like him. "You're staring again," she said one afternoon, not opening her eyes. Ronin didn't look away. "You're awake." A faint smile touched her lips. "I've been awake for 5 minutes." "Then why didn't you say anything?" She opened her eyes slowly. Looking at him. "Because I wanted to see how long you do that." A pause. "And?" he asked. "Long enough to be creepy," she replied softly. That almost made him smile again. Almost. Silence settled between them. But now. It was different. Not heavy. Comfortable. "You didn't leave," she said after a while. Not a question. Ronin shook his head slightly. "No." A pause. "Why?" That question lingered. Because the answer wasn't simple. "Because I couldn't," he said finally. Elena studied him. "Or because you didn't want to?" He held her gaze. "Both." That was the truth. And she felt it. Not just in his words. But in everything he had done. "Good," she said quietly. A beat. "Because I didn't want you to." The air shifted slightly. Not dramatic. But real. Days passed. Then weeks. Elena got stronger. Slowly. Step by step. Ronin stayed. But outside those walls. The world hadn't stopped. His empire still moved. Still demanded. Still watched. And eventually. That reality came knocking. "We need to talk," Luca said, standing in the doorway one evening. Ronin didn't turn. "Not now." "It can't wait." A pause. "Then say it here." Luca hesitated. Glancing at Elena. She noticed. Of course she did. "It's fine," she said softly. "I'm already in this." Silence. Because that was still true. Luca exhaled. "The others are starting to question things," he said. "You've been gone too long." Ronin's expression didn't change. "Handle it." "I have," Luca replied. A beat. "But they don't follow me." Silence. "Because everyone knew who they followed." "They follow you," Luca continued. "And right now." A pause. "You're not there." That was the problem. Ronin didn't respond. Because he already knew. The empire didn't pause. It adapted. And if he stepped away for too long, it would change without him. Or worse. Fall apart. Elena watched him. Carefully. Because she could see it now. The weight. The choice he was trying not to make. "You should go," she said quietly. Ronin looked at her immediately. "No." Simple. Firm. But she shook her head. "Yes." A pause. "That's your world." Another pause. You can't ignore it forever. They were just two people. Choosing each other. Then stay, Ronin said quietly. A simple word. But it carried everything. Elena smiled. I already did. And just like that. It was done. No applause. No noise. Just a quiet promise. In a world that didn't believe in them. But outside that moment, reality waited. Because the moment the ring was on her finger, Elena became something else. Not just a woman. Not just someone Ronin loved. She became a target. And more importantly, a symbol. The first meeting after the wedding was tense. Too many eyes. Too many unspoken thoughts. Elena stood beside Ronin as they entered the room. Men who had followed him for years watched her. Not openly hostile. But not accepting either. This is unnecessary, one of them said. Not loud. But clear. We don't bring outsiders into this. Elena didn't react. But she heard it. Ronin did too. She's not an outsider, he said. A pause. She's my wife. Silence. Because that didn't solve the problem. It made it bigger. With respect, another voice added. That doesn't change what she is. A beat. A liability. The word hung in the air. Heavy. Elena felt it. Not just as an insult. But as truth. Because in their world, weakness wasn't tolerated. And she was new. Unproven. Ronin stepped forward slightly. Say that again, he said quietly. The room went still. Because everyone knew that tone. I said, the man began. I heard you, Ronin cut in. A pause. And you're wrong. Silence. Because Ronin didn't defend lightly. She's the reason I'm still standing here, he continued. A beat. So choose your next words carefully. That ended it. Not because they agreed. But because they understood. He had chosen. And there was no changing that. Later that night, Elena stood alone on the balcony. Looking out over the city. Light stretching endlessly. Beautiful. And dangerous. Ronin stepped beside her. You handled that well, he said. She didn't look at him. They're right, she replied. A pause. I am a liability. Ronin's expression hardened slightly. No. She turned to him. I don't know your world, she said. I don't know your rules. A beat. And that makes me weak here. Silence. Because she wasn't wrong. But Ronin stepped closer. Then learn, he said. Simple. Direct. And I'll make sure no one ever sees you as weak again. Elena studied him. Not afraid. But aware. Because this was the real beginning. Not the wedding. Not the promises. But the life after. A life where love wasn't enough on its own. It had to survive everything around it. She nodded slowly. Then don't go easy on me. A faint pause. Ronin's eyes held hers. I never do. And somewhere beneath the surface, a new challenge began. Not against enemies. But within their own world. Power wasn't given. Not in Ronin's world. It was taken. Proven. Survived. And Elena was about to learn that the hard way. The days after the wedding weren't peaceful. Not really. On the surface, everything looked stable. The empire still ran. The streets still obeyed. But underneath, something was shifting. Whispers. Doubt. Not about Ronin. About her. She doesn't belong here. She'll get him killed. She's the crack in the armor. Elena heard it. Not directly. But enough. Enough to understand. This wasn't something she could ignore. So she stopped being passive. She started learning. Fast. Ronin didn't ease her into it. He didn't protect her from it. Because she had asked him not to. And he respected that. Again, he said, placing a gun on the table. Elena looked at it. Then at him. You're serious? She asked. Always, he replied. A pause. If you're going to stand beside me. Another beat. You need to survive without me. That was the rule. Elena picked up the gun. Her hands steadier than before. Not perfect. But not afraid either. Show me, she said. And he did. Not gently. Not slowly. But honestly. Because this world didn't forgive hesitation. Days turned into weeks. She learned how to read people. How to notice danger before it appeared. How to stay calm when everything around her wasn't. And slowly, the whispers changed. Not gone. But different. She's adapting. She's not weak. Maybe she belongs. Maybe. But not everyone was convinced. One name kept surfacing. Luca. Not openly. Not directly. But enough for Ronin to notice. Say it, Ronin said one night, standing across from him. Luca didn't look away. You're changing, he replied. A pause. And not everyone sees that as strength. Silence. You think it's weakness? Ronin asked. Luca shook his head slowly. I think it's a risk. A beat. And risk gets people killed. That wasn't wrong. But it wasn't the full truth either. She's not the risk, Ronin said. The world is. Luca studied him. And you think you can change that? A pause. Ronin didn't answer immediately. Because that question went deeper than everything else. No, he said finally. But I can change how I live in it. That was new. And dangerous. Because men like Ronin didn't step back. They ruled. Or they fell. There was no middle ground. Later. Elena stood alone again. But this time. She wasn't looking out at the city. She was watching the training room. Watching the men. Watching how they moved. Learning. Ronin stepped beside her. You're getting better, he said. She didn't look at him. I have to, she replied. A pause. They're still not convinced. Ronin's voice stayed calm. They don't have to be. Elena shook her head slightly. Yes, they do. Now he looked at her. Why? She turned to him. Because if they don't trust me. A beat. They'll never stop seeing me as your weakness. Silence. Because that was true. And in his world, perception could be more dangerous than reality. Then we change that, Ronin said. Elena held his gaze. How? A pause. Then. By showing them you're not. Simple. But not easy. Because proving strength came with a cost. And that cost was coming. The call came late that night. Urgent. A deal had gone wrong. Not catastrophic. But unstable. A situation that needed control. Ronin moved immediately. But this time. Elena stepped forward. I'm coming with you, she said. No hesitation. Ronin looked at her. A long pause. Because this Was the moment. Not training. Not theory. A faint smile touched his lips. About leaving. That wasn't light. That was everything. Elena's expression shifted. Leaving what? She asked. He looked out at the city. Light stretching endlessly. His empire. All of it, he said. Silence. Because those words didn't belong to a man like him. You're serious, she said. He nodded. I built this to survive, he continued. A pause. But I don't want to spend the rest of my life fighting to keep it. Another pause. Not if it means losing everything else. Elena studied him. Not surprised. Because she had seen this coming. Not in words. But in him. And what happens after? She asked. Ronin looked at her. For a long moment. We build something else. A beat. Something that doesn't require blood to hold together. Silence. Because that wasn't just a plan. It was a risk. A different kind of war. But this time. Not one he had to fight alone. Elena stepped closer. Taking his hand. Then we do it together, she said. Simple. But absolute. Months passed. Changes came slowly. Power shifted. Responsibilities handed over. Luca took control of what remained. Not as Ronin's replacement. But as the one who could continue what Ronin chose to leave behind. And for the first time. Ronin didn't look back. The house was quieter. Far from the city. Closer to the sea. A different kind of life. Not perfect. But real. Elena stood in the doorway one morning. Watching him. Not giving orders. Not surrounded by men. Just, there. You're getting used to this, she said softly. Ronin glanced at her. I'm learning. A pause. Slowly. She smiled. Good. Another pause. Because you're going to need it. He frowned slightly. Why? Elena stepped closer. Taking his hand. And placing it gently against her stomach. A silence fell. Not empty. Full. We're not alone anymore, she said quietly. Ronin didn't move. Didn't speak. Because for the first time. In a very long time. He felt something unfamiliar. Not fear. Not control. Something else. Hope. A slow breath left him. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. Elena smiled softly. Good. A beat. Neither do I. Silence. But it wasn't uncertain. It was enough. Because this time. They weren't trying to survive. They were building something. Something fragile. Something real. Something worth protecting. Without destroying everything else. And as the sun rose over the water. For the first time. Ronin Veil didn't feel like a man who had lost everything. He felt like a man. Who finally had something to live for.